And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to welcome back Wendy Walker, here to give us the inside scoop on her brand new book out next Tuesday, What Remains. Wendy, welcome back to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
Thank you for having me. Okay, so What Remains is about cold case detective Elise Sutton. She is put in a situation where she has to take one life to save another. And this sets off a dangerous cat and mouse game with the man whose life she saved. And she has to use all of her knowledge and resources to keep herself and her family safe.
Whoa. Well, we have a lot to talk about because I'm a huge cold case true crime fan. And oh my gosh, there's just so much to get into. But first, I just want to welcome everyone who's watching because we are going live to 7 different destinations across Facebook and YouTube. So no matter where you're watching from, friends, you're in the right place. This is the right time. It is a Mystery Monday. And because Mondays can be murder, we're going to make them a little less painful. So if you've been here before, you know the drill. And if you're new, welcome. Here's the drill. Every Monday, I give you my handpicked featured authors, and you get to ask them anything. So ask Wendy about what remains, about her obsession with cold cases, why this book, why now, what her writing practice is like. Is it true that she's an introvert? Did she survive Thriller Fest? We got a lot of questions. Just get them going in the comments and I will get them right over to her. While you're typing, I want to kick off with some of the amazing praise that this book has earned because it's like reading a who's who of everybody in the thriller world. So first of all, let's kick off with AJ Finn, who had this to say. He raved that about you. I'm going to pop it up so we can all read it together. He says, absolutely splendid storytelling. A book to read, to entertain, to immerse, and to challenge. First of all, congratulations on that rave review from AJ Finn. Wendy, clearly AJ knows a thing or two about entertaining, immersing, and challenging the reader. So yeah, you succeeded in captivating him. So tell us what your secret is. What do you think? This is not your first rodeo. What's the secret? How do you entertain, immerse, and challenge your readers?
Wow. Okay. So I don't know that there's one, succinct answer to that, but the much longer endorsement from AJ Finn spoke to the fact that this has a lot of genres mixed in. So he mentions that it's part cop drama, part stalker thriller, and part psychological thriller. And I think with this book, I really just decided to follow the story. I had the idea for the story, and I followed the story where I felt it needed to go. And so it started with a study in trauma. What happens to someone who is a bystander to an act of violence? And then I decided to make her a detective who was actually involved in that incident in a way that led to more trauma, guilt, doubt, juxtaposed with the fact that she was positioned as a hero in her community. So in this case, it was really just me following the story and writing what I felt passionately about. And sometimes, if you boil it down, that's sort of what it comes down to.
I love that, and I did just pop up the whole review because it does cover us because AJ liked to share it all. But I think what he said is really important, which is that he says a few chapters later, another question, more unnerving. What would you do now? Most novels would have quit by this point, but most novels aren't written by Wendy Walker, whose earlier stories of psychological suspense, humane, inquisitive, and sinister, often in the same sentence, showcased a rare talent. In What Remains, Walker smashes that showcase to rubble. So I think what he's talking about is the interconnection and all of these themes and all of these threads, which and he sort of really honed in on that. So I wanted to start with his review because it is so all encompassing. But he is not the only one who is raving. B.A. Paris also had some very lovely words to share. And I want to talk about her review because she talks about your finely crafted characters. great plotting, and so much tension that you'll have trouble catching your breath. This is Wendy Walker at her best. So first of all, let's start with, are you a plotter, Wendy, or are you a pantser?
I am a plotter through
Okay.
and through, 100%. Yeah. If I'm not plotting, I really have trouble writing. And actually, this book, I started out trying to pants it because I had this an opening scene. And I thought, well, I'm just going to try it and see what happens. And it was a complete fail. I was 50 pages in, and I was still in the department store. I was still the scene. I was still writing all the little scenes and things in the department store where this act of violence occurs, because to me it was fascinating. And then when I went to read it back, I realized the plot's not moving. So I had to put that aside, go back to my plotting, and then I pulled from, what I had written and wove it into different chapters. But that's the thing about, writing over the years, is you do gain a lot of tools. And so a lot of what I wrote I thought was really interesting, but you need more than that. You have to, for me, I have to have some structure and some other devices that are moving the plot along. So yeah, it was a fail. I will always, camp, like team plotter. That's me 100%.
Oh my goodness. Well, Team Plotter is clearly working for you. And oh my goodness, Liv Constantine has just entered the chat. Hi, Liv. Hi, Liv. Oh my goodness, it's so great to have you here. Welcome,
Okay,
welcome.
there must be no Lifetime movies on. Sorry,
Oh,
that's an inside joke.
is a fighting words right there. I love it. Well, so great, Lynn. It's so great to have you here. Thank you so much for popping in. And if Liv Constantine says it's good, we know that it is. She says it's so great. Hi. Oh, she's clearing that the Lifetime movies are coming on later. She's able to fit us in now. She's able to fit us in now. That is so good. So, Wendy, you said you need structure and some other devices. What are the other mysterious devices that you're referring to?
So I always try to think about I think about it in many ways. So I start with a list of disclosures, factual disclosures to make my plot work.
Ooh,
And yeah, so and it's just a list, and it's not in any particular order because I want to make sure I get that. And as I come up with more plot ideas, I'll just throw them into the list. When I sit down to plot out the book, I will then put the all of the disclosures in order, because I don't necessarily know who's going to be disclosing them to the reader, but I know that they have to be disclosed and only disclosed once. And that's another device that I use, is I try not to give the same information to the reader more than once unless it's useful to the story in another way. For example, showing how a particular character feels about the disclosure. But I don't want to. I think that that can sort of slow the plot down, and it's boring. The reader already knows these things. And then once I've put all the disclosures into each chapter where they're going to be, and I've made that decision. Like this character is going to disclose this fact in this way, and then I can sit down to write. And that's where the sort of more fluid writing comes for me, because I will fill in around the plot scaffolding all of the character development, all the descriptions of things. And then sometimes things will take me in a different direction, and I'll come up with a new idea and I'll have to thread it through. But yeah, those are the basic tools that I work with at the very beginning.
so Wendy, I want to talk about your character now. So, as a person who's also obsessed with cold cases, what is it about human nature that, why do you think we are so obsessed with cold cases? Why do we care? Why can't we just let it go?
So this is my theory, and it could be totally wrong, but I think where we are interested in crime, um, full stop, because I think it allows us to process our fear of crime. So when something, it's like a car crash, right? Why there's rubbernecking, it's very hard to look away, and I think it's our way of trying to understand what it looks like and what it feels like without it happening to us. If you take a cold case, that's a case where, it goes on and on, right? We hear the colder a case gets and the more investigation takes place, the more we hear about the family of the victim, the more we hear about the victim, the more we hear about all the possible suspects, all the people the victim knew, who could have done it, why. We get into this psychology. And that immersion is deeper and deeper the colder the case gets and the more fervent we are to sort of, to solve it, and wondering all the possibilities of who could have done it and why. And I think that allows us to really immerse in our fears and process those fears and our curiosity about people who might be dangerous. There's something very primal about the desire to understand that, to
Mm.
help keep ourselves safe. So that's my theory about it. I could be totally wrong. Maybe we're all just really curious and twisted. I don't know.
So, what fear did you want to process with this book? That you're trusting the wrong person, that you could save the wrong person, that people aren't who they think they are, without giving anything away, obviously. But what were you noodling on and working through?
Yeah, so it started. So I write a lot about trauma. Anyone who's read my work, a lot of it starts with childhood trauma, and then sort of threads through to where people are when we find them in my story. This book starts with, just people going about their lives who are all together in this store when this traumatic event occurs. And I was interested in this topic after listening to witnesses to a real shooting in Colorado who had just come out of the store, and they were the
I'm sorry, Wendy's frozen and I was muted, so I'm going on. Oh, Wendy, you're back. Okay, you were frozen.
oh, oh my
You were
gosh, I'm sorry. Yeah, was that on my end? Okay, I went out. Okay.
totally okay, but we lost you at you saying you became interested in this because
Oh,
you saw a story about a shooting
yes,
and the
yes,
witnesses who.
yes. So the witnesses had come out of the store, and they were the first ones to be telling the account of what happened in the store because
Okay.
first responders hadn't come out. The press was already there. And so they were breathless and in the moment and telling what had happened. And then, the story quickly turned to the news coming out, and they just disappeared. And I thought, well, what happens to those people? They're going home and they're probably expected to be grateful that they weren't harmed, and to just be, go on with their lives. But that's a significant trauma to witness something like that and to have that kind of fear. And that's where it began. So this book, I really wanted to explore that fear of what
Yes.
happens when you witness something really traumatic, but you're otherwise unharmed. And so, yeah, that's where it came from. And the whole book is really a trauma study. All of the decisions Elise makes, all the ways that she reacts to things, are all because she is in that fight or flight mode from that moment on.
And yeah, that is so. That's so interesting to learn about the backstory that based on the real life story of sort of what got you thinking about this, because I actually never thought about that either. That the people who witness it are in fact traumatized, even though they are physically intact.
Yes.
So wow, okay. And how long did it take you after hearing that story to write this book?
Well, it took a while because honestly, I had, a lot of people in my camp who were like, don't write about a shooting, don't write about a shooting. And so I was like, okay, I won't write about a shooting. And I tried writing it that, maybe it was just a sort of a holdup in a convenience store, but it didn't have the same impact. And actually, for those of you who are concerned about reading about a shooting, no one in the store is actually hurt except for the shooter. So I did not want to sort of really make it about a shooting, but to make it about the sort of fear that happens when someone is in a situation that they maybe think is a shooting or think is dangerous. So it's not like a gruesome, mass shooting book at all. It's really just about the triggering event being a trauma. And what was so fascinating about cold cases, because I know we were touching on that, is that when I decided to write it and I started interviewing a real cold case detective who's advised me on a lot of my books, she She had so many stories. It was, I mean, I could talk for an hour about, what it's actually like to be solving cold cases. It is so different from what we see on TV and what we imagine it to be. I mean, a lot of the time they're just flying by the seat of their pants. They don't have a big budget. They're given a lot of, leeway to do whatever they want to do. They'll find suspects to a 20-year-old crime, and they'll find them, sit outside their apartment building, collect DNA from vacuum dust in the garbage. They'll grab a Coke can off a table where the person was sitting without that person knowing. And because now suddenly they have DNA to process from the original evidence box, but now it actually can be analyzed. So they'll find the original suspects, get their DNA, and start ruling them out. She said it's like shooting fish in a barrel, like no match, no match, no match. Oh, there's a match. And it was mind-boggling. But in addition to that, so there's a lot of that in the book, but in
Yeah.
addition to that, the emotion that she described working these cases, she said every time she takes a file and decides to open a case, she knows that the family members are going to be, brought back into the crime and in a sense re-traumatized,
Right.
and maybe to the point where they are finding some justice or finding a body or finding a missing person, and
Mm.
that will change their lives for the better. But sometimes it will just reopen the trauma, give them hope again, and
Oh,
so it's an incredibly emotional decision. And then going into these old cases and knowing that now it's like at rest, there's something weighty about that in a very calm and thoughtful way, instead of like an in the moment we have to find this perpetrator way, but a really calm, thoughtful way. And the emotions are very different and in some ways deeper. So that I wanted to weave all of that into the book because I found that so compelling.
yes. Oh my God, that's fascinating. I've learned so much just in these 30 seconds. That's very, very cool. And very cool to know that you worked, with this real life detective on not just this book, but many of your books.
Yeah.
Um, Y'all, I'm very excited to share that we're able to offer you signed and personalized books tonight. So the book drops next Tuesday. That is June 13th. And Wendy can offer you, we can offer you signed and personalized books tonight. So here is your link. So Wendy is going to our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore in Houston, Texas, for her launch event in person at the store next Tuesday. And so if you click this link and order, and then when you're placing your order in the notes section, put who you want it signed to and what you want it to say. I personally like it when Wendy says to Sara, my inspiration and my best friend, thanks for all the guidance. I mean, it's like, Wendy, stop chasing me. But you can have her say anything you want. So I feel like a book is a perfect birthday gift, Christmas gift, Hanukkah gift. We have so many Mother's Day, like whatever's coming up, 4th of July. We got a lot of holidays coming up. Your birthday, your mother-in-law's birthday, your girlfriend's birthday, whatever. A book is such a great gift. A signed book is like extra cool, but a personalized signed book is the coolest thing of all. And we can offer that to you tonight. So here is that link. Click and order, put it in the notes, who you want it signed to, what you want it to say. This is so fun and so fabulous. No matter where you're watching from, you can do that. Christine, welcome to the conversation. Saying wonderful. I will order it tomorrow. Yay. Thanks so much, Christine. Christine, it's always such a pleasure to see you pop up, ma'am. Thank you for watching and thank you for ordering. Let's get to some of this other amazing praise. So B.A. Paris, who's been on the show with us twice, saying finely crafted characters, great plotting, and so much tension, you will have trouble catching your breath. This is Wendy Walker at her best. She's not the only one raving. We have Catherine Ryan Howard saying incredibly tense, utterly authentic, and endlessly intriguing. I dare you to try to put this book down. Catherine McKenzie also popping in saying, Elise Sutton is our perfect guide through this labyrinth. Tough but vulnerable, smart but a bit lost in the plot of her own life. Walker immediately made me want to know what was happening. Oh my gosh, this is such a fabulous review. And she is not the only one. Julie Clark, who's also been on with us, raves that this is a twisted game of obsession and secrets. What remains starts with a bang, literally, and doesn't let you go until the final exquisite resolution. Now, Wendy, let's talk about the resolution. As a plotter, did you, without revealing anything, because we don't like spoilers on the show, did you always know the book was going to end the way it did? Did your editor say you got to, up the tension? How did that work?
So originally, there's a second narration in the book. The book is narrated in first person in Elise Sutton's voice, but there's a second narration that comes up every few chapters, and in very short chapters, and it's in first person, but you're not quite sure who's narrating it, and you don't know what time frame it is, but you do know it's related to the primary story, and it takes place at this hunting shelter in the deep woods, and there's a room in there called the kill room, and there's an animal cremation oven, and human remains are found in it, and it all starts to tie into the primary story of what Elise is going through. You just don't know how or why until the end. And my original plan for it was too subtle, and so the first reader who read it was like, I love it, but why were there, three bodies at the end instead of two?" And I was like, "Oops, I guess you missed it because there weren't three bodies." So I had to go back and make it a little less subtle, and then then it really takes a lot of eyes on the book to get it just right. Like, okay, don't drop that clue more than once, put that clue in later, maybe drop in some things about the weather to give people a sense of the time, but not everyone will catch it, but some will. I mean, it's a lot of massaging when you have that kind of a twist. When I decided in the end who was telling that piece of the story and how it would tie together, and I came up with the structure for the last few chapters, it was like deeply satisfying because it had been a long journey and I wanted it to really tie together. And when something just really ties together and then isn't just working for the ending, but also just makes so much sense emotionally for the characters, and then you can tie the characters together through that ending, it's so satisfying to me. Hopefully it will be for readers as well.
So sorry, I was muted because I didn't want you to
Oh, good. I thought it was me
I didn't
again.
want you to hear me typing the pre-order link. Tracy saying, "Hi, Wendy and Sarah. So nice to meet you both at Thriller. Hi, Tracy. Thank you so much for joining. So lovely to meet you as well." Wendy, I like how you describe the reworking of the ending as, quote, deeply satisfying, because I think that when that writing is not easy, right? And a lot of the times, at least I spend thinking like, is this working? Like tap tap, is this thing on? Is you picking up what I'm putting down? And when you get it right and it hits and you feel that sort of deep down click where it is right, it is exactly that. It is deeply satisfying. And I also was thinking about what you said about the placement and the revelation of the clues. What I have learned is that is such delicate work, and it's very finely threaded, because you don't want to bore the people, as you say. You don't want to be revealing it multiple times, but you also don't want them to get to the end and say three bodies. Well, I thought there was only two. Like, so
Right.
it is. Yeah, this is the work of it, and this is what makes mystery so freaking fabulous.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's and to, I was talking to someone earlier about trying to have a fast-paced story and an action-driven story, but also be able to bring in the emotional connection to the characters, and those two things are always at odds, because when you ask a reader to slow down and
Mm,
hear about backstory and hear about an internal thought or a feeling, it's a big ask, because you've also asked them to live in this tension and to be breathless with suspense, and all they really want to do is turn the page and find out what happens or what did happen. And now you're saying, "Oh, but okay, take a breath, because now I'm going to tell you, this story about the past, so you like my character more." It's that too, I think, requires a lot of massaging, a lot of beta readers, a lot of people, to weigh in, and ultimately to then have to make the decision, because not everyone agrees, and try to find a middle ground, because some people like more backstory, some people want to skip right over it, and you have to try to thread that needle every single time.
Exactly. Exactly. Bookstagrammar, bookish with wine, raved that this may be the biggest cat and mouse game of the year. Another bookstagrammer that I follow, not too many books, said this may be end up being my favorite book of June because it is so unexpected. So it's just so great to see that the intention and the work that you put in resonating and being received, exactly as you would hope.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. The cool thing about the cat and mouse game that is that this man she saves this man's life, and then when he becomes obsessed with her, and something called rescue worship or hero worship, when someone saves someone else's life, and they try to make sense of it by feeling there's some divine connection between
right,
themselves and the rescuer. But anyway, that's the psychology behind it. When he becomes obsessed with her and he wants to find a way into her life, he accesses these materials that she put online when she was a professor of forensic science. And so he knows everything that she's ever taught and all of the cases that she's solved because she's continued to upload materials to these class portals. And so, in a sense, she's playing a cat and mouse game with herself. And that, I think, is what makes it kind of cool, is that all the forensic science is really brought in that way because he knows what she knows. And then she has to remember that and try to think about, what he's going to do next so she can, outsmart him.
right, exactly. We have a mystery user. We are broadcasting live to 3 private Facebook groups tonight. So, because if you're in a private group, you and the other members of that group can see who you are, but Facebook protects your identity outside of that group. So, the rest of us in the group can see it, but outside, you're a mystery user, which is very on brand, saying, I ended my review by saying, this was a brilliant look at the psychological aftermath of what it means to be a savior. I can't wait to learn more about Elise. She is so complex and guarded. Will there be, first of all, that is a beautiful review.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for that. Really.
And will we be seeing more Detective Elise, Wendy? Is this the start of a series?
It's not the start of a series. It's not planned as that. But I would like to see more of Elise as well. So, perhaps there will be, perhaps we will. The next book is not an Elise Sutton book. It's another standalone, and it's pretty much done. I have one more round of edits. And I think it also has some hopefully engaging characters. So.
Wendy, can you tell us anything about that book?
Yes, I would love to. For some reason, when I tell people about this book, I don't know, they're like,
Wendy,
"What is that?" Oh,
the mystery user has revealed herself. She is Carrie Whiteshield. She is at Carrie Reads Them All. She's an incredible bookstagrammer because Carrie does read them all. She's like a speed reader over there.
Yay! Thank you, Carrie.
Amazing. Thank you.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. So the next book is called Kill Me Softly, and it is about a serial killer who is targeting middle-aged women and making it look like suicide. And the people investigating sort of believe it because of where they are in their lives and the things they're going through in their lives. And then there's a young feminist researcher who comes across the files, notices the similarities, and realizes that there could be a murderer on the loose. And she gets one of the detectives to start looking into the case. And it's got 4 points of view: the researcher, the detective, the victim 4 who is in her home about to be attacked, and the killer who is already on victim 5 in a split time frame. So really short chapters, a lot going on, and some feminist themes at work.
I am here for the feminist themes. And I really loved how you were saying that, that at first, of course, everyone assumes these women are taking their own lives because if you're a woman of a certain age, why wouldn't you?
Why bother, right?
Yes, so I
Yes.
am here for that story. Christine saying this sounds riveting. Oh my God, right, Christine? And y'all, I did just want to link to Carrie, who is Carrie White
Thank
Shields.
you.
her beautiful review. I'm putting it here in the comments because Carrie wrote such a good review that I want everyone to go see it. So here is the direct link to Carrie's review. Carrie, thank you for joining us and sharing your beautiful review with your thousands and thousands of followers. Y'all, we are out of time. We're actually over time, but time flies when you're having fun.
Wow.
Am I right? Wendy Walker, thank you so much for coming on. Y'all, I want to just remind you one more time that you can order your signed personalized book. I mean, I'm just thinking about like what I will have Wendy say, because it will be something like hilarious and amazing. But here's that link. And again, put it in the notes right when you're checking out what you want her to say. Happy birthday to your mom. Merry Christmas. I stockpile signed books throughout the year, and then I just keep them in a closet, and then I wrap them up at Christmas time, and it's so perfect. So start stockpiling, my mystery and thriller loving friends. Wendy Walker, such a pleasure to host you again. Again, congratulations on your book
Thank
launch next
you.
Tuesday, and happy Pub Day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yay. All right, y'all. That is a wrap on Mystery Monday. I will see you next week with my next two fabulous guests. Have a great rest of your week. Survive the rest of the week, and I will see you then.